Canadian immigration lawyer Max Berger is joining me tonight from Toronto with more on this. Mr. Berger, thanks for being with us.
Good evening, Marcia.
Now, I know that you have said what the Tories are proposing is not that simple. It's illegal and a violation of the Charter if these migrant ships are turned away. Can you explain that further for us?
Well, there are two issues here, Marcia. The first is whether the government should be taking these special measures, and the second is whether these measures would in fact be legal. I don't believe the government should be taking special measures because the volume of refugees that arrive by boat is really a drop in the bucket. Canada sees 35,000 refugee claimants coming here a year. Last year in 2009 it was 34,000. That's about 100 a day. So when you look at the arrivals in British Columbia last month, the 500 or so Tamils that showed up, that represents what we see normally in any 5-day period. The problem is that the government has seen fit to create a great deal of anxiety, even hysteria, over these new arrivals. There have been rumors of tuberculosis. No one, in fact, ever had tuberculosis. There were rumors of Tamil Tiger terrorists on board. No terrorists were ever found. So the fact remains that we can handle this flow of refugees. In fact, in the last 30 years, there's been only about 8 boats with refugees that have come to Canada. So no special steps need to be taken. Now, the second point, is it legal? Well, that raises some interesting issues because as far as intercepting boats in international waters and turning them away, human rights bodies and the United Nations High Commissioner on Refugees have said that that violates international law. And our Supreme Court has said clearly that Canada cannot be complicit to torture, either directly or indirectly. And intercepting these boats and sending them back to the country where they can be persecuted would likely violate the Charter.
I want to go back to your first point, that Canada can handle these migrants. If we go back a month or 6 weeks ago when we knew this ship was coming, a lot of Canadians were upset, not the fact that they were coming here, but by the way that it was being done. And critics said these people are jumping the queue. So what do you say to those Canadians who are waiting for family members to come over and are going through the proper channels, and yet other people that are showing up in a boat are allowed to seek refuge here?
I don't believe the refugees are jumping the queue because they have their own queue, so to speak. Refugees have no choice. By definition, these are people who cannot stick around in their country and wait to be processed. They are leaving, they're fleeing because they are afraid for their life. So they have no other choice but to take desperate measures in order to protect their lives, that is the genuine refugees, and get here some way or another.
So where do you draw the line then? Does this mean that every shipload of refugees is accepted here if they show up on our shores?
Well, once again, when you say every shipload, let's put it in perspective. There has been 8 shiploads over the last 30 years. A couple in the 1980s of Sikhs and Tamils, about 4 in the 1990s of Chinese, and these last 2 boat full of Tamils. There's a real irony, Marcia, in the fact that the government announced just the other week it's spending $500,000 to commemorate the St. Louis ship, which is an incident shameful in Canadian history where in 1939 a ship full of Jewish refugees from Germany were sent back and many perished in the Holocaust. And yet this same government hasn't learned from that and is now considering doing the same thing again, sending a ship full of refugees back to where they came from.
Such an interesting discussion. Max Berger, I'm so glad you were able to talk to us tonight. Appreciate it. Come back and talk to us again.
Thank you, Marcia.